Thanks, Nick. I think the aura went the other way, but that's okay. Bell Labs was a pretty exciting time when I was there. Actually, there was only one phone company, Ma Bell. We were a monopoly. We could do whatever we wanted, and you know, nobody ever asked us how much everything was. So it was a much better time. Now, actually, if you look at the data, you were much better off with your phone rates back then than you are now, but that's a whole other story, okay? When I worked at Bell Labs, they had a building that didn't have any name on it. There were 180 lawyers in it trying to figure out how to keep the telephone company from being broken up. And they finally, MCI finally succeeded. So at Bell Labs, I had a great experience. There was about 8 or 9 people that worked with me at Bell Labs, meaning in the same building. I would say with me, but in the same building, went on to win Nobel Prizes. Along with Pancreas and Wilson, who were there in the hall down the next hall over. It was a pretty exciting time. And I've had great fortune being able to work with a bunch of people that are pretty bright. Dergens, who's passed away, Alan Heeger, who's won a chemistry prize. I'm bringing this up because mentors is what helps our young people to, mentors are what help our young people succeed. And one of the things, I'm pretty convinced now I'm not going to win a Nobel Prize in anything, okay? But I also think that I can help bring young people into engineering. And so that's really what I do. I can't compete with landing on Mars that Marty talked about, with drilling in the core in Antarctica, or even with bullfrogs, because they're pretty cool. But what I wanted to tell you about is that engineering actually is in every part of your daily life, and especially for at least the one young person back there, I'm going to try to convince you to become an engineer. Hi. Okay. There may be other young people. I don't know. You look pretty young, but I'm not sure how young. You don't. Okay. So let me tell you a little bit the way I'm going to go about this. I'm just going to talk about things that we look at, and then show you how engineers use something they already know to solve problems when they come up, okay? And to show you how the range of things we do is not always a new invention. It's taking what we know and using it. And that's really what engineering is a lot about. I'm in the School of Chemical, Biological, and Environmental Engineering. I'm a chemical engineer by training. I also work with pre-college programs. That's kind of my hobby. And I spent a lot of time trying to convince kids that they should be engineers, because one of these days I may retire, although I'll probably just die in my office. But here's the problem, and when I tell kids, okay, the equations, problems in the world are complicated, the solution's simple. Equation 1, world has big problems. Equation 2, engineers are problem solver. Solution is we just need more engineers. Okay, it's pretty simple. All we need to do is get more people to go into engineering. And and the way we do that to get the smart people into it is that we need to show them that you can save the world. You don't have to be a doctor to save the world. Okay? When you're in high school, if you think back, maybe you're thinking forward, I'm not sure. But how often do you hear somebody say engineer? Okay? Trains, all right, that's about it. You hear science, you hear physics, you hear math, you hear chemistry. You hear about doctors, okay, and firemen, but you don't hear about engineers. It's really amazing. And so my passion for years has been starting with kindergartners and starting to say the word engineer. And if I can hear a first grader say, hey, you're an engineer, I've succeeded, okay, because at least they'll know that's an option for them. So we need more engineers. Everybody agrees with that. And you want to think about letting kids know what engineers are. We have people, ideas, and innovation. So here's our Kelly Engineering Center, and we pride ourselves in the College of Engineering in innovation. Okay? So when you Google engineers, you say, who are engineers? Okay? And when I talk to the kids, I'm just going to give you the quick little spiel of how I try to convert these guys. So you say, who are engineers? So you Google this, and you get this picture right here. Okay? Now, that absolutely could be me, okay, except I joined Weight Watchers, so I slimmed down a little bit, and I never showed that much cleavage. But other than that, that's what people think engineers are like, okay? And that's a stereotype. So when I look and show them who our engineers are, I put these pictures up. And I say, listen, this woman right here, Kelly Wilson, she's one of our chemical engineers. Remember there was a big explosion for a chemical plant in Texas, and agricultural plant? She was one of the first responders. She works for an agency that looks at disasters, okay? And so she was one of the first ones there. This woman here, Carrie Varon, is now working at UCLA in the graduate program trying to take salt water and turn it into fresh water using not so costly processes, energy efficient processes that use special kinds of membranes. This guy right here, Joey Hansen, industrial engineer, 2008 gold medal winner in crew at the Greece Olympics. You can be a person, a real person, okay? Look at those people, and you can be an engineer. A lot of people don't think that's true, and particularly kids, okay? The biggest dissuaders we have for getting kids out of engineering is other kids, okay? Their peers tell them, if you're going to be an engineer, you're going to be like that fat white guy, okay? And you're going to sit in the room, and you're not going to be able to do anything. So this is why I like to show them these people and all these faces and say, we need all shapes, sizes, colors, creeds, everything in engineering. So that's my pitch that I make to the kids when they come, okay? And then I say, what do? We do everything, okay? That's just the way it is. Anything you touched, we've probably had a hand in, okay? And then I'll go in and talk about some of these examples, but I'm not going to do that today. I kind of find it interesting when I say, what's this here? And everybody responds, what is it? iPod, right? It's an MP3 player. It's just that Apple's one of the best marketing companies in the world, okay? So anyway, that's always one of the little jokes I do. And then my other favorite one is this foot. See that foot? It's in a shoe. What do you call that shoe? Stiletto high heel. That's the stress distribution in a stiletto high heel. Now try to figure out why women take them off after 10 minutes, okay? All right, and then we go into modeling and how you would redesign that shoe, okay? So there's stuff like that. You can be an engineer and go into a lot of different areas, okay? And so one of the important things is that you can start with engineering, and I can tell you right now with my experience with doctors, do we have any doctors in here? Okay, good. My wife has been to a lot of doctors over the last 10 years. If they had started off in engineering and knew how to solve problems, she'd be better off, okay? We train our doctors now with rote memorization, where they need to come up with an answer like this instead of actually looking at data. If you actually ask them to look at data, they are puzzled, all right? But when we take bioengineers and send them to medical school and they have a really high success rate of getting in there, then they become much better doctors. And I'm absolutely convinced of that, okay? So that's one of my other pitches. And then here's Don Pettit, Silverton, Oregon. He's an astronaut. He's logged the second most hours on space station of any astronaut. Don was a graduate of 1975 in chemical engineering. So he's an engineer, went to get his PhD at the University of Arizona. He applied to the space program 4 times over 10 years before he finally got in. So then I say, hey, listen, don't give up on your dreams. If you want to be an astronaut, keep trying, okay? So that's my pitch to get kids into engineering, all right? Now, let me tell you a little bit about what I do once I get their interest, is I do stuff with them to show them that engineering impacts daily life. So we're going to start by talking with about a couple of different things that we normally do. So this is a little drink called an Orbitz drink. Okay, it was taken off the market in 1996. All right? That makes it an antique, and it's valuable. Okay, so if you go on eBay, you can pay 40, 50, 60 bucks for one bottle like this here. So my daughter's in high school. When she goes to college, I have some. This is actually a very common flavor, but I have some of the rare flavors stashed in my office, and I'm going to sell them when my daughter goes to college and pay some of her tuition that way. Okay, because everybody says I'm not a wise investor, but I bought 200 cases of this when it went off the market. So, unfortunately, we drank 180 of them. Here's what the Oregonian said. It said, these little beads are suspended because of neutral buoyancy. So here's the story on this one here. One of my students came into my office, and they knocked on the door and said, hey, Skip, look at this cool drink. These beads are all suspended because of neutral buoyancy. They're all the same density as the outside liquid. So I picked it up and I did this here. This is called the simple shear experiment. And I watched what they did and I said, oh, that's not right. And then she said, well, that's what the Oregonian said. She showed me the article. And I said, well, it's not right. She goes, well, that's what they said. And I said, okay, I have to prove it to you because they don't believe anything I say. And so we did. I took a high school student and we spent 3 months and we replicated the drink. We proved it wasn't specific gravity at all, okay? But in fact, this clear liquid is like a giant spider web. That spider web is weakly associated, and it holds those little gel beads in place. Well, this started me off on the 15-year odyssey of making gel beads. And if you go to our section here in the OSU Discovery Village and you take the first right, you can make gel beads, all right? Now, this is a drink that went off the market that tasted terrible. But if you look at this another way, it's a zero-gravity microreactor, biological reactor. And so one of my faculty members came in and said, Skip, I'm having really hard time suspending my beads in any liquid because if there's just a little bit of a change in density over time, they're going to fall out. And so to replicate a microgravity or a zero-gravity environment is really hard. He says, how do these things stay suspended? Do you know how they do that? And I said, yeah, I do. And he said, well, I have a NASA contract. I'm going to do that. And I said, pay me the money, okay? And so we got together and we did a little project. And what we were able to do is make some beads, and it's actually really easy to make the beads. I'll show you in a second. And then we can take those beads and we can put stuff in them, and then we can grow things in them, okay? And then if you grow them in this kind of environment, then you grow them in something that simulates a micro environment, gravity environment. It's not exactly zero, but it's pretty low, okay? So Allison, my assistant, here's Allison. She is a student that's worked with me for a couple of years, and she is going to Arizona State University next year in bioengineering. She's just starting, so she just graduated from Crescent Valley High School, and she's going to help me with this. Okay, so I'm going to show you how easy it is to make gel beads. And Allison will be demonstrating this after the show in the OSU Discovery Village, right, Allison? Okay, so stick your hand out. Okay, so just to demonstrate that this is a liquid, Allison's going to put her hand up, and you can see liquids flow, right? Okay, now this drink right here, this material is sodium alginate. Sodium alginate is extracted from giant seaweed, kelp, okay? So they harvest kelp, they make this material. This is what, if you ever have a shake at McDonald's or Burger King or something like that, this is what it is. Okay, it's not a milkshake. Don't go look. It does not say milk. All right, it's pure polymer. Okay, now is that bad? No, it's just a big carbohydrate. It's okay. Actually, if you're lactose intolerant, you don't have to worry. Okay, but the nice thing about and actually, to be honest with you, they don't use this. This is too expensive. They use this stuff called guar gum, which they also use for drilling muds. But anyway, that's the point, okay? This is a large molecule, and Allison can rub it into her hand because it's also a very nice face cream, all right? And then we're going to take a solution here of a material called calcium chloride, and we're going to plop these beads in there. Now, every kindergartner in town pretty much has done this and done it like 1,000 times, okay, because they keep coming back. But when you do that, and then you take it out, what do you end up with there, Allison? A little bead, okay, little squishy beads. And that, folks, is the magic of chemistry. So we give a big hand for Allison. Yay, Allison. Now, thanks. What's happening? So here's what's happening. We take that, it's red up there, but it doesn't really matter. We put food coloring in it. We drop it into calcium chloride. And here's what happens when you do this. Okay, the calcium diffuses in, and then eventually you have the entire bead becomes a solid gel, if you want it to. But let's see, how can we use this? Okay, this is an interesting thing. How can we use this? Well, if we take anything, so over here I said let's make an artificial pancreas. So on the upper right, left-hand side, you take some islet cells, islets of Langerhans. So when you have a pancreas that doesn't work, it doesn't produce insulin. That's called diabetes, okay? So we take those islet cells, we add them to this little liquid here, and I drop them in, and now I have this bead that has a whole bunch of islet cells in it. And let's make millions of these. We have a little bead generator. For years, I hired a bunch of high school students, and they made a lot of beads, but then I made a bead generator. It's cheaper and more reproducible. And so we do that, and then you take those beads, you put them in a semi-permeable sack, semi-permeable like Gore-Tex, okay? Stick it in your gut, and you have an artificial pancreas. Now, this is another one of those cases where the engineers have far exceeded the capabilities of the medical profession. I can do this right now in my lab. The doctors haven't figured out how to put it in the body yet. Okay, so they're lagging behind like usual. And so, what do we do? Well, what's an option here? Let's put it on our belt. Okay, we carry everything on our belt, including these things that ring incessantly, right? And so let's put it on our belt, and let's look at how they did this with kidney dialysis 45 years ago. 45 years ago, when they developed kidney dialysis, they looked at what's called a shell and tube heat exchanger to exchange heat, and they said, hey, let's take blood and put it in one side, and let's take electrolyte drink like Gatorade on the other side, and let's take the bad stuff out of blood, and we'll use semi-permeable membranes instead of pipes. They took exactly the design of a shell and tube heat exchanger and turned it into a kidney dialysis module, which if you go up to Good Sam, they still use today, 45 years later. Okay? And so, and they take the blood out of the body, bring it through this, and bring it in. So we could actually take the blood out, have it measure the glucose, and then have a pump, because we have insulin pumps, right? You could take insulin pumps and now have a feedback loop in there so that you could say, how much insulin do I need to keep my body level? Because the problem with diabetes is this. Up and down, up and down. Our body likes to work like this. Our body's great. Okay, we're really good processing information. So that's one of the ways that you could do something with this. But that's not the only thing. I can make drug, put a drug in here, any kind of a drug, say a cancer drug. Now I have this being a drug. I take this bead, and now what I do is I coat the outside of that bead with an antibody that looks for a cancer. I make them very small, I inject them, they go into the blood. When they look at something they want to attack, they attach to it, and then it releases the drug. That's called targeted drug delivery. We can do that too, okay? It's not we only, I mean, everybody's doing that. So that's another application. It turns out these little beads love to suck up heavy metals. So if any of you saw Erin Brockovich, the movie, it was about heavy metals in the water affecting people. If you make a whole bunch of these beads, and Dr. Ivanovich and I have done that, and we've actually taken it out to Idaho, made a big, put it on the back of a truck, drove it out there, big tubes of beads. So basically, take this, fill it with beads, and then put hoses in and out. You can go and take the water out of a contaminated aquifer, bring it up, have it go through the beads, and come back out. The beads suck up heavy metals. They like charged molecules, so they suck them up. You know, calcium, magnesium, chromium, those kinds of things. Then, since the beads are 98% water, you dehydrate them, and then you only have to destroy that amount of material versus heating up a whole aquifer to get rid of the heavy metals. Those are just 3 different applications, one environmental, chemical, and bio. And I have little handouts on this if you're interested in it, which details these here. So you should pick one up back there, okay? All right. So again, here's a very simple thing. Terrible tasting drink to curing cancer. Okay? All the same technology. You just got to figure out how to cleverly use that. Okay? And so that's an example to me of what engineering is. I didn't invent making the beads. Okay? I just used what the beads could do to help me. Okay? Next. Disposable baby diapers. Okay? So one of my favorite topics. If you've ever seen me, I love to talk about baby diapers. Here they are, okay? They're a wonderful invention, and they are also the bane of our existence, right? Okay, you can't live without them, and you can't live with them. The reason our landfills get so big is nobody recycles these things. You poop, you pee, there it goes, cough and butte, gets bigger, right? It's so good that children are staying in diapers a year later now than they used to. Why would you give it up? You pee, you get a nice gel pad when you fall down, okay? I wouldn't give it up. In fact, lots of time I wish I had one. And pretty soon, we'll have Depends. I mean, we have Depends, and actually Depends is a terrible, I mean, they're much better at making baby diapers than they are Depends. So pretty soon now I'm going to start working on the adult diapers because, you know, I'm going to need them. And I want them to be comfortable and small, right? So anyway, there's a whole generation of these diapers. So why does this work so well? Well, it works so well because of this little thing called super absorbent polymers. Okay, so let me give you a demo here. Here's some water. This is what I use to clean my face in the morning, a little cotton swab. Okay, that's why it looks so good. So I'm going to squirt 10 mils of water in there. And then what I did is I took a diaper apart, all right, and I took the middle out of it. And this is the inside. Now here, you feel this because you seem like you want to. You feel the granular stuff in there? Yeah. Okay, so there's little granules in there, right? Okay. So I'm going to squirt this with 10 mils of water also. And then while we're doing that, I'm going to take this salt-like stuff, okay, which is called superabsorbent polymer, and I'm going to squirt 10 mils of water in there. Now, Allison, you want to come up and help me here because she's going to need to keep squirting. Okay, so here we go. This is a cotton swab, 10 mils. Okay, all the water comes out. It's called cotton, right? We get cotton wet, we wring it out. That's what it does, okay? And our skin feels wet. Here's 10 mils and about the same mass of baby diaper. Here, can you squeeze it out of there? Look at that, he's breaking it up. He's nothing, absolutely nothing, right?
Yeah, not much.
Okay, not much, a little bit.
A little bit.
Yeah, okay. So, put water in this. Used to be, whoops, it fell out because I didn't have enough water in it. But should have put another 10 mils in. But so put some more water in there and you'll see. But anyway, it didn't fall out as a powder. Here, since you're my demo guy, I'll give it to you. Right? See how that is? It's actually pretty dry, right? Okay. So that's the great thing about superabsorbent polymers. Here's my little baby picture. So this is from what do you call it? Scientific American. Okay. And here, this tells you the basic makeup of the baby diaper, and tells you a little bit. There's actually the molecule that does all the work. All right. So now we know baby diapers are great, but what can we do with that? Well, it turns out Allison's still peeing in her diaper there. Okay. Okay, and just keep track of how much you're doing. These are all different uses for superabsorbent polymers. We know the baby diapers, okay? You can use it to clean up medical waste, any kind of liquid waste. You can use it to remove water from fuels. So it sucks up water, but it's not affected by oil. So you put it in a fuel that has water in it, okay, and it can take it out, and you end up with something that looks like this here, which you can remove easily. Actually, I had a problem I worked on with Boeing. Boeing had an issue with, it has a little bit to do with power cables. So Boeing in their airplanes, in the place where they, what do they call it, the galley, where they prepare the food, sometimes they get leakages in it. They were leaking down coffee, which is kind of acidic, and it was rotting away some of the wing or something underneath. I don't remember exactly what. And they didn't, and it's a really hard place to get to clean up, and they didn't know what to do. So we said, hey, let's just put a bunch of baby diapers down there. And we did. We covered it with baby diapers, and now it soaks that all up. And it's not like a lot of stuff goes down there. It's just when they have spills. And so that really helps. Essentially, you take baby diapers and coat that area in it, and it really helps to clean that up. OK, so now how many do you have in there? OK, so pretty sure she can turn it over, and it'll be OK. There's 50 mils of liquid in there, and she can just keep going. The absorbency ratio on this is about 250 to 1, meaning how much liquid can I absorb for every gram of material. So it's really great. That's why they call it super. And the reason it's super is because, go back to my guest assistant here. So feel that. Tell me what it feels like. Feels like
kind of like a gel.
Like a gel, and that's what it is. It's a hydrogel. Thanks. So the hydrogels. Think about Jello. What does Jello do? You take liquid, you add some powder, you heat it, you cool it. All of a sudden, you get a semi-solid, right? And you can't squeeze the water out of it. Same thing with this. It's a gel. It's a hydrogel. So we use hydrogels for a lot of things. So preventing of soil erosion. They sell a material called Soil Moist. I got to tell you a quick funny story. So you know Schmidt's down the street over here. So what's Schmidt's? Huh? Walt Schmidt was so I went in there. I wanted to find some things called Soil Moist, which is an SAP material for soils. And nobody in the store knew anything about it. And they said, well, go ask Walt. He's in the back. So Walt's puttering around. I go up to Walt and I say, hey, Walt, do you know anything about these superabsorbent polymers that you can use to mix in the soil? And Walt looks at me and he goes, know anything about them? I'm wearing one. Just like that. It's one of these things I wish I had on tape because it's like a classic, okay? I don't know if you know Walt, but it was so funny. It depends, and soil material, same thing. But if you mix this into the soil, it prevents erosion. Now that's kind of nice if you have hanging plants and you add water, it doesn't come down on your head. But if you're in the Central Valley in California, and you get torrential rains, and then it's really dry, and all the topsoil goes away, that's a big issue. If you're in Ontario, Oregon, that happens too. You mix some of this SAP in with the soil, and when it rains, it holds it together because it's a gel. And guess what? It releases slowly as it gets drier so that you can actually extend the growing season. So you prevent the erosion of the very high-end topsoil, and you also extend the growing season. That's a great use, right? And now people are working on other materials because they're worried about, well, maybe this acrylamide material might not be great in the soil forever. So they're working on more biodegradable type materials that would not be, that would be better for the soil. And we actually have a project going on that too. Here's a good one: protection of home from wildfires. So if it turned, when we lived in Santa Barbara, we had a wildfire, came down from the hills, burned all the houses. Luckily, our stuff wasn't in one. But anyway, one of our friends' houses burned to the ground. Well, if wildfires burn very hot for a short amount of time, and they burn from the top, it's not an internal fire. So they come to the top. If you can, I think the rule is if you can save your house for 30 to 60 seconds, sometimes that's enough to keep it over. Well, in California, they used to build houses with swimming pools on the top. Basically, if the fire was coming, they'd put a hose up there. Well, that kind of restricts you to a pretty square-looking house. Now you can take SAP, squirt it on your roof. When the fire's coming over, you go squirt the roof. You immediately have a wet baby diaper on top there. And that's enough to actually save houses. This was discovered by a fireman in a Florida fire who picked up a diaper after the house had completely burnt down. He said, hey, this diaper is still wet. Maybe I can do something with this. That's innovation, right? Somebody doing something that solves a problem. And that's what engineers do. Okay? So I really like that one. It also makes good snow for artificial skiing inside. It basically doesn't melt as easily as the other stuff, so it's better for indoor skiing places. Not that I want to promote that, but that's another thing it's used for. And if you use a different chemistry, you can use it for oil spill cleanup. Okay, so change the chemistry a little bit. Instead of picking up oil, instead of picking up water, it picks up oil. Same basic idea, just fiddling around with the chemistry. And believe me, that's what organic chemists like to do. You just say, here. One of my good friends at Dow Chemical when I worked there was a guy named Charlie, and he was a great organic chemist. And all I would have to do is say, hey, Charlie, I wish I had a molecule that did this. And Charlie would start salivating, and then he'd go in his lab, and 3 weeks later, he'd come out with a molecule for me to check. And so, that's what organic chemists are great for. They're really good friends to have. Okay, so that's what you can do with that, change the chemistry. And I want to talk about this one here. This is one of my favorite projects. We don't know what to do with plastics. Okay, plastics are too complicated. Now we have this thing called the green wall in China that are not taking our materials. So everything we recycle in Corvallis basically gets on a ship and goes to China. Okay, I mean, we think we're doing good things. All we're doing is feeding the Chinese economy. And when it goes to China, one of two things happens. They either burn it for fuel, okay, which releases toxins, which end up back in Oregon, or they make toys and paint them with lead paint and then send them to us. So either way, we win, okay? But now they're not even taking them anymore. They're getting much more restrictive, all right? So what are we going to do? Well, if you've seen any third world countries, I got my PhD in San Diego. I used to go down to Tijuana a lot. And if you drive along there, you can see in the valleys, there's 100,000 people living in these shanties with tin roofs. It gets really hot in Tijuana and gets cold sometimes in the winter. So I was thinking about this. I was thinking, why don't we look at using recycled plastics? Because if you look around on the ground, there's a whole bunch of trash down there, even on the beaches. So we started a project, what I call the Haiti project, because it occurred right after the Haiti, was that a hurricane or an earthquake in Haiti? Earthquake, yeah. And I saw a bunch of broken houses, and I saw a bunch of trash everywhere. So here, what we started to do is say, okay, these are demos, so we're not going to use nice, Ziploc bags. But the idea is, let's take some materials. Here's some twine. Here's some LDPE foam material. Here's some PVC sheets ground up. Here's styrofoam. Nobody wants to take styrofoam, yet it's a great insulation material. So I said, let's take some of these recycled plastics and turn them into building insulation. It's easy to do. You take a block, you break it up like this here, okay? And then in a third world country, what you do is you take all those plastic bags that are hanging around, and all you got to do is heat them a little bit, and you can put that stuff in here, and you can compress it to whatever you want, because we have a bunch of people sitting around with nothing to do. We have doors, so you just put it underneath. You have them sit on it for a while. You make a material that rivals the Dow or whatever those styrofoam materials that are available at Home Depot. So we get that. We measure the thermal conductivity of that material, how good a resistance it is to heat transfer, and we can compare. And I can tell you, most of this work has been done with high school students like Allison and other people like her, where I can tell you what particle size and what compression you need with styrofoam. Take a styrofoam block that nobody knows what to do with to turn it into a building material that is almost as good, or actually as good, as the stuff you get at Home Depot. And then you can do that in third world countries. That's great. I think that's really fun engineering, okay, when you can do something like that, because you can also help people at the same time. Now, this started off as a project in Oregon for green building, because if you do that and put it in your building, you get green building points, and you can get what's called LEED points and turn it into a green building. So that's how it started, and but it turned into something else because we had this technology, we were looking at it anyway, and we applied it to something else. Again, that's what engineering is all about. And then that leads me to Willamette Valley sheep. Turns out the sheep in the Willamette Valley, of which there are many, don't make very good wool for clothes. Okay, the fibers are too small. So but they have to shear the sheep because they have to keep them going, and they use them for eating, right? And so all these cute little guys you see out there are really going to, turn into whatever sheep turn into. What do they turn into? Mutton, I guess. I don't know. Something. I'm a vegetarian, so I don't eat them. But anyway. So there's a bunch of wool piling up in the things, and the Oregon Shepherds Association, I think is what they were called, came and saw me and said, hey, we want to use wool as a building insulation material for green building applications, and somebody told me you know how to measure the resistance, R values of these materials, which we did because we were working on this other project. So I said, sure, I'll measure those. So I got a bunch of wool from these guys of all different kinds, so here's some wool samples, and I started measuring the R values on them, and it's pretty good. Okay, so we did that. And then something happened completely different called the Gulf oil spill. Everybody remember that? Okay, big mess. So here's the deal. I'm driving home one day listening to NPR about all the devastation that's going on down there, and they say, we need to contain this oil, and we're going to make booms, okay? So everybody cut your hair and send your hair down to the New Orleans area, to the Gulf region, so we can make booms, because they use the hair to make booms. So I'm sitting there thinking, what can I do? All right, so I had really long hair. I cut off all my hair and sent it down there, and this is what happened. But after that, I said, I have no more hair. Okay, can't convince my wife to cut her hair or my daughter. This isn't going to work. There's not enough hair in the world, okay? But I'm sitting there, and I'm thinking about this, and I go, man, I have a lot of wool. Next morning, I come in, I take some oil, I take some wool, I put them together. Guess what? Wool works just as well. We got a lot of wool, right? So that started a project which Audrey and Stephanie helped me with. They were both undergraduates at the time. How can they help? Wouldn't you rather be helping people soak up oil if you're a sheep than thinking about what your destiny is going to be? So anyway, turns out that sheep hair and human hair are pretty similar. It actually traps the oil, and luckily for us, you can wash it out, because otherwise we'd have really oily hair all the time. Okay. But anyway, it turns out that you can do that, and so you can make these things called booms. And here's two types of boom. The boom on the left is an absorbent boom, and here's how you make it. Okay, you take wool. Here's some wool, and then I go to the shoe store down there, and I steal these little fake socks. They let you to try on socks. Okay, don't tell them. And while my wife and daughter are looking at the shoes, I just go around and grab them. And then you do this, and you tie it off. Okay. Hope there's nobody from that store. Luckily, this isn't being taped. And here you go. There's a boom. See, I just made a boom. Now, I call that a baby boom, okay, because it's tiny. A boomlet, yeah. And here's the other kind of booms that they were using. And the difference between this is these are all plastic. And all the plastic does is encase it. Doesn't do anything else. And if you have waves, then the stuff goes right over it. These booms here, if you take that and you stick it in oil, it starts to suck it up. And then the great thing is, you can keep the boom. That's your prize, okay? You are now a baby boomer, okay? And actually, that's making you older than you are. I'm sorry. So you can take it, and here's the great thing about it. We're engineers. We don't want to just soak up the oil. We want to recover it and sell it and make money, right? And you can do that with the booms, okay? You take them, and then you just bring them to shore. You wring them out, okay? And then bring them back and use them again. And then you have the oil. In the Gulf region, they just threw away all of the oil that they were recovering, okay? Very bad idea, all right? Now, you can argue a lot of these things. You can argue against baby diapers, disposable baby diapers. Everybody should use cloth. We always have people that come up and try to argue about we shouldn't be promoting this. You can argue about drilling in the Gulf region, but turns out that about 80% of the economy there is actually driven by deep sea drilling. So you better argue with those people that they can't have a livelihood there. So what we do is we're not trying to change people, the way people do things necessarily. We're trying to make it better, okay? Make it more reasonable how people do things. That's what engineers do. And so that was one of the solutions for that. And then from this project, actually, Audrey, who was working on this, we started to look at how can we clean up the water in the wetland regions where it's really, it's kind of a sensitive area, the marshes. So we started, it turned out I saw some guy in Washington and Port Angeles that was growing mushrooms that eat oil and convert it into nice things, like H2O and carbon dioxide or something like that. And so we started growing mushrooms. And it turns out she's been able to grow some mushrooms that can eat the oil and convert it into a non-oil species. They're down in our basement right now. The process is slow, but on the other hand, remediation, long-term remediation, is a slow process. So you could put them out there in the marshes and they could eat them. Again, that all led from this little project of can you take wool and make it a better insulator? So all of this just leads from one thing to the other. And the last thing I want to talk about is Dean Kamen and the Segway. So I was going to bring the Segway over, but it's actually such a popular ride that they wouldn't let me take it. Okay, so if you want to see the Segway, we have it. We're giving rides down there. But Dean Kamen is an innovator and an inventor. He made his millions by designing a diabetic pump, actually, years and years ago. Okay, became a millionaire. He started the first robotics league. Has anybody participated in that? Any of you young? Yeah? Okay, good. Yeah? All right, good. And he developed something called the iBot wheelchair. The iBot wheelchair is a stair-climbing wheelchair. And when he developed this, you basically have to, there's a great video of George Bush falling out of it, by the way, the second Bush. But anyway, it's virtually impossible to fall out of. And it's climbed stairs. And when you climb the stairs, you have to get up on two wheels, and you have to balance the person. So once they developed that wheelchair, which they did, they had this technology to keep a person balanced. They said, what can I do with it? I'm an engineer. I got this cool technology. I want to put it somewhere. Let's make a people mover. And they designed this thing called the Segway. So the Segway works on balance. There's no throttle on it. It's just all your body position. So if you have a chance, you can go try it out. Now that never took off. That's a whole other story. That's like, I think, a business problem rather than anything else. But what I was trying to show here is that this iBot to the Segway, again, same thing. It's moving your cool engineering solutions to solve other problems. And that's really, I think, the key to engineering.